Hello, everyone. Glorious summer day. I hope it is for you. This is Furley Almonte, your host for Faces of Resilience, the Top Talent JV Special Edition. My goodness, once in a lifetime, you meet people that just blow you away. Let me tell you something. I've never met a rocket scientist before until today. And I have her on the show. And, besides her being a real rocket scientist, I'm sure she's going to talk to you about that. She is one of those people who are actually at the pinnacle of her game because she has helped her clients actually reach over $2 billion in revenue. Can you imagine that? What will your business be like if you could actually work with somebody who can teach you and guide you on how to be able to accelerate your business and stay on the top of your game all the time? Well, that is my client. Oh, not my client. That is my special guest today. So let me tell you a little bit. I wanted to give you more glimpse of what she is all about. DORINA Lanza is a nine-figure entrepreneur who specializes in working with the top 1% who are awakened to their life purpose and businesses so they can truly soar in their game. She is a high-level strategic thinker who dives in and personally helps her clients achieve their transformational breakthroughs. Dorina is the number one advisor in the world who merges scientific, mathematical, and business disciplines in her practices so that she can take her clients into their pinnacle. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor and pleasure to welcome Dorina Lanza. Woohoo!
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know. It's like, before we actually came onto the on air, Dorina actually showed me something, and that is basically in keeping with my message of resilience. Nowadays, you know that it's been very, very challenging for many people, entrepreneurs or even professionals who are employed in corporations, to stay elite and on top of their games because the demands have been different because of the pandemic. And so we would like to talk about how you become even more resilient, how you can rise and thrive through these challenging times. So, Dorina, I would love to hear about, first of all, your background as a rocket scientist.
Ah. Well, yeah, I went an interesting route. I've always been in a position where I take people from 95% of the way there, whatever their there is, and get them to their peaks, their pinnacle. And I started as a ski instructor 55 years ago, believe it or
Wow.
not. And very quickly, the pattern emerged. Same thing happened when I was a professor at Northeastern University. I wound up with the higher level classes because that was where I was really, really strong. And I won't bore you with the details of my bio. It's you can certainly
I'm very impressed because first of all, you're a woman. You know how it is. Like, oftentimes we end up, shrinking our abilities because we make others feel comfortable. But no, with you very confidently stand in the light and you soar into your magnificence. And we could learn a thing or two about that.
Well, actually, we'll diverge from my background and get into how people wind up, especially women, in a position where they're running around trying to please people, help people, just give of their time, give, and then they don't have any time for themselves. And it really stems from something called their mind type. And I work with my friend Ridgely, who developed this system. And I realized that if I know somebody's mind type, I know what their core wounds are and what their missing rights are from when they were a kid. And as a result, I can help them get rid of that false map of reality that developed that looks like, oh, well, I will only be approved of if I shrink and I'm not too big. I'll only be approved of if I am, the ideal helper and help everybody else. And once people realize where these false beliefs came from, all of a sudden they can drop away. So that's a big piece of the work that I wind up doing, because people wind up hitting a brick wall, if you will, and then can't get any further. And it's because of these blocks that they don't even know that they have. So it's interesting that you brought that up. My mind type is that of a master, because when I was a little kid, I figured out that the way to gain approval was to be the top at anything that I tried. If I, so, okay, that's what you have to do in order to be accepted. So that's what I did. And, there are great gifts in developing these mind types, but they'll also screw you up because, you've got this I'm not worthy going on. And so in order to be worthy, you've got to be at peak. Otherwise, you're not worthy. And that's my path.
So how many mind types are there?
There are 7 mind types.
Can you just go over, briefly what they are? And like, I know I'm sure it's like a whole big lesson, but can you just quickly identify the most common ones?
The most common ones are giver and connector. And that's what you described with the women. The least common is master. Then you've got perfectionist. You've got, which is the person that has to make everything perfect. You want to kill them if, then you have the rebel, and I've got a lot of rebel in me too. You want me to do what? No, I don't think so. No, not happening. Anyway, oh God. And I'm missing a couple, but anyway, the giver and the connector are really the ones that are most dominant. Then I also work with the archetypes. There are 12 archetypes, and I've got 4 ties at the top. I'm a ruler, magician, sage, rebel. And if you know these things, you can take advantage of the strengths that you have by definition that you probably take for granted. Said, oh, anybody could do that, right? But they can't. And if you can understand your mind type and your archetype and get your hands on, the strengths, weaknesses, and the stories the types of stories that you live and so on, you will be in very, very good shape to be more resilient, as is the subject of what we're talking about, because you'll know how to. And now is an appropriate time to hold up my. This is a marble sign. Can you see it? This is how you become resilient.
Never, never, never give up.
That's Winston Churchill, and I guess we're done. Never, never, never give up.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Regardless of your mind type or regardless of your archetype, if you just don't give up, and I like what you're saying, is because if you know how to work with what you have, you're able to achieve the pinnacle. And oftentimes we don't see that. We cannot identify it ourselves. Can you share with us, like, say, for example, an instance where you work with a client who does not know what her mind type is and has been shrinking in her potential, and now you were able to uncage it?
Yeah, in fact, I one client in particular, very soft-spoken, didn't, speak up in her voice. And we went through the process of figuring out the mind type. It's like, oh, she figured out she was a rebel. Really?
Really?
She was really a rebel.
Goodness, she was.
Which is very, very, very interesting. And we went through and pulled stuff out from her past. The subconscious has to get involved to tell you stuff that you've forgotten. And she became a force to be reckoned with. She's really, she's still, how can I say it? she is a soft archetype. She's the idealist archetype. Oh, it is just how it sounds, but she's really come into her own and is standing up for what she believes in, because now it's articulated, right?
Yes.
So many people. I'm kind of jumping around here, but one of the key things that you really want to do is figure out what you stand for, what you won't stand for, what your values are. And you got to figure out your superpowers, which is what you wind up getting when you're doing the archetype and the mind type analyses and working with somebody that understands and knows how to put the stuff together and integrate it into your business.
So how with that example that you used, okay, she was very shy and soft spoken before, and now that she has identified herself as a rebel and the soft archetype, what changes did you see in her business, and how did it translate to her bottom line?
Well, she's completely revamped her offerings. She's now stepping up as the leader in her field, and she is attracting the right type of people because she's showing up as her authentic pinnacle, for lack of a better term, self. And I find that that's really one of the keys in attracting these high-level clients. It's that you need to know yourself so well that you show up authentically everywhere. I mean, at the grocery store, when you're wearing, ratty t-shirt and shorts, they can still tell, on the way back from the beach or something, which is where I spend most of my time. But anyway, people will recognize that, and you'll begin to attract the strong people of any archetype and any mind type, because people want to connect with somebody that is really authentic and they can completely trust, because you're completely congruent. You don't do or say anything that's not in keeping with who you are, unlike so many people who tell you what they think you want to hear and that kind of stuff. So you really got to get to know yourself, and that makes the biggest difference. And it translates into the bottom line, but it also translates into your becoming the number one person in your niche and creating a team of evangelists, essentially, your clients and colleagues saying, oh my God, you've got to go and work with this person, because this person can get you from here to here, depending on, who the person is.
Dorina, right now there's a lot of, mostly, say for example, women who are so giving and they almost feel guilty about having to ask for money because things are very challenging right now financially. So what would you say to them to be able to shift the way they're thinking? It's not an overnight thing that you can change their mind
Right.
type, right? But what would you say that is actionable for people who may feel guilty about asking because they just love to give?
Well, mind type is kind of like your operating system. Once you've got it, that's it. So that's not going to change.
Mhm.
But the archetypes can change. What people need to do is understand what map of reality they're operating under. Okay. And the person who's giving has the map of reality that I've got to give, because otherwise I'm not worthy. All right. And this I'm not worthy resulted from some rationally completely insignificant instance when they were 1.5 or 2 or something like that, where, I don't know, maybe they tried to sit in dad's chair, right? And the mother goes, oh, you can't sit in that chair. That's dad's chair. And so the kid translates that not to, oh, okay, fine, I'll move to another chair. The kid translates it to, oh, I'm therefore not worthy. And they don't know that is a correlation that they develop that they're applying to everything throughout their life. So what you want to do is figure out whether it's I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, money's bad, whatever. There are 5 core wounds and 7 missing rights. The right to be loved and accepted, the right to speak your voice, and all that. And what you got to do is you got to go back. And I find that what works is, before you go to bed at night, you lie there and you ask your subconscious, would you please illuminate for me what it is that caused me to have this basic I'm not worthy thing going on. And what winds up happening is you'll get a flash, to ask a particular question. I mean, for me, to give you an example, I would see a particular color of light blue or a mid-1950s car, and I would want to throw up. No idea why. Just physically sick, couldn't look at it. And when I was born in Italy, my parents came to the United States when I was 9 months old. I couldn't get a visa. That's another story in and of itself. So they left. I stayed with my grandmother, my grandparents. My grandmother brought me to the United States when I was about 2.5. And then she went back to Italy, obviously, because her husband was there, right? And so one day I was probably, I don't know, early to mid 40s. I just got this, I was at my parents' house and I just got this flash. Ask your mother what car they had when I got dropped off in the United States. And do you know it was that color, light blue, mid-1950s sedan?
Wow.
And then what happened was, all of a sudden, I don't know if it was my rationality kicked in or what, but all of a sudden now, I have no problem with that color, light blue. In fact, I own stuff that's in that color, light blue. I still don't like 1950s cars because I think they're ugly, but not because they make me sick. So it's that, and I had no recollection about that, but it's that kind of a flash that you get, and you go, oh my God, looks like that's where it came from. And then you see other situations in which things happened and reinforced that belief, even though that belief was just BS, a belief system, right? It wasn't true. So that, if you want to do it yourself, you certainly can. It could take you a long time, but you can certainly clear all that stuff.
Yeah, I love, by the way, that there's actually a lot of spirituality. Reading your bio, I thought maybe like everything is so mathematical because you're a scientist. Everything needs to be logical. But I'm listening to you right now, feeling so fascinated that wow, there's a lot of spirituality in what she's saying, and a lot of internal work that needs to be done for you to be able to step into that pinnacle, so to speak, right? And so with I love what you just shared. So do men and women process their mind types differently, or are we just wired differently? Because
No. Typically, what you see in a particular culture is a pattern along gender. But if you wind up as a woman with a mastermind type, you're going to look a whole hell of a lot like a guy that's a mastermind type. In fact, my friend Hubert is a mastermind type. And boy, can we get into stuff. Oh, yeah, did you see this? Oh, my God, if you look at it this way. Oh, yeah, let me go look at this. It's not a, it's a how you were brought up and expectations thing. And I happen to be brought up in a scientific household. The roles of the sexes weren't really, I mean, my father was a professor. He was home half the time because he was a professor, unless he was consulting. And my mother was home. Then she wound up going to teach school after we got older. And so I think the belief system gets passed on from the parents.
Most definitely. You had mentioned in your bio about being mathematical also in your approach. Can you explore a little bit more on that?
Well, I've got most of a PhD in math, and that's how I wound up as a medical physicist, aeronautical engineer, et cetera, et cetera. And then I went to business school and went into the management consulting, mergers and acquisitions. And then I also developed, I was one of the top people in the network marketing industry also, which is when this whole coaching thing got started. But when you go through a program in mathematics, it really teaches you how to think and how to look at stuff. So I think you wind up with a broader perspective, if you will, than somebody that maybe majored in, I don't know, business as an undergraduate or something like that, or as a graduate student, whatever. So it's not so much that I apply well, actually, let me retract that. I do apply mathematics to what I'm teaching and what I do, because mathematics tells you that there are n dimensions where n goes to infinity. Therefore, there are an infinite number of dimensions. Therefore, from the space-time perspective, which is where we are right now, anything that ever could have happened, everything that ever could be happening now, and everything that could happen in the future already exists. So you can rechart your path. There's nothing that dictates that you have to take a particular path, even in the past. And that's mathematical. And I have a friend who's one of the top physicists in the world at Harvard. And we've had conversations about how many dimensions are there. Infinity. He's like 13. It's like, oh no, Andy. Anyway, but they're very, very interested in things that we talk about from a personal development perspective, from a physics, but it's really mathematical perspective. Physics is generally behind mathematics in terms
So
of.
what do you say to people who actually are petrified of math? They don't have a very good relationship with numbers. They avoid it like a plague, tracking and, tracking numbers and all of that. How can you help rewire or change the relationship people have, that includes myself, with math?
Okay, well, that happened when I was teaching statistics for business, even to the graduate student. They were terrorized because it was math. So the first thing I would do is give them a smack upside the head, figuratively. Tell them it's not that complicated. And really, one thing I'm very good at is taking things that are perceived to be complicated or actually are complicated, and I break them down to their simplest form. So people go, oh, is that all it is? Why did I think it was so hard? And part of the problem is that there are so many people out there that don't know their subject to such a sufficient depth that they can't explain it. They make it complicated, even though it's not complicated. And what happens, it's kind of like the mind type. Your map of reality is, I suck at math. Well, somebody probably alienated you to math because they didn't know what they were doing, right? So I explain that, and I show people how simple it really is. And they're like, wow, why didn't anybody tell me this before? So that's how I handle it.
Yeah, actually, I love what you just shared, because it made me think of my daughter, who in the beginning actually was studying nursing, right? And then she shifted her major because she said, I hate anatomy and physiology. And then a couple of years later, actually, she graduated with a whole different degree. And then she went back to becoming, she went back to sciences. And now she's studying A&P again. And I said, I thought you hated A&P. Oh, but and then she said, oh, mom, my professor right now is absolutely phenomenal. It's so enjoyable. And the deal breaker there was actually the teacher. And so
Exactly.
what you're saying is that because you're able to simplify what seems to be perceived as complex, makes a very big difference in the way people live their lives. Wow, what an eye opener.
Yeah, and I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't explain something simply, you obviously don't understand it well enough.
Oh, That was very, very insightful. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, definitely. I have another question. Your whole actual email and your website is like Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Okay, talk to me about what exactly that means. Like, is it like you work with just a circle of just the best of the best, or is it open to people who are actually have a lot of potential but have not lived up to it?
Most people have a lot of potential and haven't lived up to it, even if they're the 1% of the 1%, which
Really?
is
Okay.
which is who I tend to attract. Generally, I find that the people that do best are people that have been very successful in some area in their life, whether it was, I don't know, skiing, football, ballet. I'm talking only about physical things, learning languages, whatever. If you have had the experience of being at the peak of any area, what you can do is you can get back into that state of mind, that state of being that you were at when you were excelling in that particular area, and then tackle the area that's not going quite so well. Okay, that feeling of accomplishment will spill over and help you in whatever you're struggling with. So if somebody's never accomplished anything in any area, they probably have some kind of potential, but I'm not their guy. um, you know, I can't help them because there are plenty of other people out there who could help them. The Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs is really a group of people that are in a position to really make a huge impact in the world, make big changes in terms of elevating people in whatever area it is. And there's a mastermind component to it. There's working with me privately component to it. There's a group learning component to it, and then there's the super elite high level programs, both individual and mastermind, that are available through it also. But you can't just show up, and I mean, you can just show up and join the Facebook group, which is fine. But if you really want to be part of the group that's collaborating, doing interesting things, you've got to go through a process.
Do you
But
have a book, Dorina? Because like I am very fascinated about everything that you're teaching. Do you have any book or like any courses that people can tap into, like on a group coaching program to start with, to just kind of get a feel of who you are, what you teach?
Well, I do not yet have a book. I'm being bugged to get a book
Fun.
out there. And yeah, I've got to get a ghostwriter, because if we're up to me, as you see, I don't have a book. So it's not going to happen if it's up to me, right?
Yeah. Actually,
um,
the whole idea of like, with the top talent JV, like David Fagan is amazing at having people, write their books and launch it to a bestseller. But I'm
Absolutely.
listening to you. It's like you are a wealth of knowledge, and like we could just immerse on your genius. And like whether it be a coaching program, mentorship, and hopefully for those people who'd like to at least just even have a piece of you in a book, that would be so awesome,
Mm,
right? Like,
yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
going to have to happen in the not too distant future. I've got to talk to
Yes.
David about that, who's
Yes.
amazing.
Oh, by the way, speaking of David Fagan and Isabel Fagan, there's going to be a Top Talent JV event next week, August 16th through the 18th, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific. You have to be invited because you need to be like a like-minded professional and entrepreneur who understands the power of lifting one another. So because it is in lifting one another that we all rise, right? And that is so we can soar to the pinnacle, so to speak. And then people like Dorina, you will meet in a place like that, and that's absolutely phenomenal. Will I be seeing you next week, dear?
Absolutely. I will
Woo!
be there.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, before we go, can you give us like three actionable tips to be able to begin to have a little bit more awareness of our mind type?
Um, see what go and look at what your patterns are, what your pattern of behavior is, and look in particular where you begin to get into trouble, like overcommitting. That's a hint that you may be a giver. And there's also, information online about mind types. Ridgely has written books, and he also comes to the David Fagan events. And in fact, that's where I met him. So I've met some really good people, really good people on in David Fagan's events. Highly worthwhile. So there is information out there. There's some free information out there. If you want to give me a shout, I'm easy to find on online. I'm the only Dorina Lanza, I think, on the planet.
You have a website?
Yeah, I've got circleofeliteentrepreneurs.com. Make sure you spell entrepreneurs right.
With an S. Right?
And you can reach me through there. I think I may even have a phone number up there. And send me a message, and if you want to talk, we can set up an appointment and have a half-hour conversation to see where you're at.
You did mention you have a Facebook group as well.
I do. It's the Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs. I think it's just Circle of Elite Entrepreneurs on Facebook. And if you want to join, you're more than welcome to join. We take everybody there. So
that's wonderful, because like, I just interviewing you right now, I have learned a lot of things, new things, in a whole different perspective, which allows us to become a lot more resilient, not only as people but also as entrepreneurs, because oftentimes we're not able to actually live up to our best potential because we are not in tune, or we don't even have the awareness of what our strengths are. And just listening to you is like, oh my goodness, like all of these archetypes and all of these mind types that we never identified ourselves with. And now I'm, so I think I'm going to renew my relationship with math.
That's right. It doesn't bite. Oh, by the way, you know how I wound up majoring in math?
Yes.
I hated labs and I hated writing papers. So what could I major in that I didn't have to have any labs or write papers in? Math. So that's how I wound up as a math major.
And so funny. And I love to write. And so I was trying to, like, okay, what course can I take that has the least amount of math?
There you go. So we need to work together so you can write and I can.
That's very funny. And I have to share with you something, because in my past life, 18 years ago, I was a respiratory therapist. And I remember before, because, okay, I need to be able to find a career where it is going to be in demand 24/7 in the hospital. And I said, like, and it's in healthcare, blah, 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 right? And then I said, okay, that means I can become a nurse. And I said, like, oh, but I don't want to work below the belt. And so I began to I actually pursued a career as a respiratory therapist. I'm no longer, like, that's a very different story, but I was exposed to an occupational hazard. So it led to my life reinvention and all that. But it was so funny how we make certain decisions based on what do we like, what we're good at, what, like what we're trying to avoid. But it's very funny how but guess what? In the end, I'm actually launching a book called "Do You Love Me Enough to Wipe My Ass?" And so, the very same thing that I was avoiding actually end up becoming the one that I had to teach people with. It's very funny. But anyway, that's the whole different story. But I love this conversation. It's so organic, and I love the fact that you bring us to a whole different level of awareness. So definitely follow Dorina Lanza. She is on Facebook, and I'm sure that one day we're going to be reading one of your books.
Yes.
And of course, like, for those people of you, if you're one of the top 1%, like elite category, who are looking to up level your game, and you want to be able to reach the pinnacle, so to speak, you want to reach out to Dorina Lanza, because she's going to approach you in a whole different light. Because I love how what did you say, a mixture of mathematical, what are the other two areas?
Scientific, mathematical, and business.
and business. Well,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I can fix your business too. If you want to scale, I can teach you how to hire and how to scale, what the break points are, where you're going to get stuck, 1 to 3 million, 3 to 8 million, 8 to 15 million, all the way up to a billion. So we go there too.
Wow.
So
Now you're talking about like a lady here who actually has helped her clients increase the revenue by 2 billion. That's B, not million. So she knows exactly what she's doing and she knows exactly how to take you there. So, you don't want to take advantage of getting in touch with this phenomenal lady. And I could not be more blessed to have you on my show, Faces of Resilience.
well,
Any
thank
last words before we go?
Guys, you can do it. I mean, leave everybody else's opinion by the side. Hang around with people you want to become like, and pretty soon, before you know it, you'll be there. So you can do it.
And never, never, never give.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Well,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
very much, Dorina. It has been such a blessing. This is Farley Almonte, your host for Faces of Resilience. And you stay well, stay healthy, and definitely live up to your best potential and never, ever, ever give up. Take care now. Bye bye.
much. Bye bye.